So as we have the speaker for the day and the moderator for the day with us for the day in California and for the evening in India, I would now like to formally begin with the program, and may I now request Amit sir to kindly put up the introductions on the screen, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, good evening, and welcome to the second talk at Aadharshila Career Talks at RRIS with none other than Mr. David Joyner, who is the Assistant Director of Global Admissions at University of California, Santa Cruz. Mr. Joyner has also served as the Director of International Affairs at Hong Kong Polytechnic University and Director of Global Engagement for Office of the Vice Provost at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So it really is a dream come true where we are able to bring students and global universities on this platform. And sir, yours is the first international university coming at the platform of Aadharshila Career Talks. And this will go down in history in RRIS and I'm sure in Mumbai. So welcome and thank you very much for accepting our request for being with us for the sake of the children of India here. And to get the best out of you, we know that we need to ask good questions. We need to ask the relevant questions. And there is no one else who can do it better than Mr. Himanshu Dev, who has been guiding children for years and years. Though looking at him, you cannot guess that he has been into this for so long, but the kind of work that he has done is really immense. So, Mr. Himanshu Dev, first of all, welcome and thank you for partnering with Ramratna International School and being our guide and mentor. Mr. Dev is a higher education and career expert with experience and education in the United States of America, India, and the Middle East. Apart from consulting and training schools and universities, he guides students to get into the best universities with the best of scholarships. Through a unique, holistic, and miraculous approach to counseling, his students have reached universities like MIT, Harvard, Cornell, Columbia, and the list goes on and on. And yes, VMU, NYU, Oxford, Cambridge, and so many of them, and even to institutions that is IITs and IIMs, ISB, and many others on up to 100% scholarship. So, children, there is a lot that you are going to gain out of today's session through the interaction between Mr. Joyner and Mr. Dev. So, without any further ado, I request both of you to take the center stage now. Over to you both, the gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jaya.
Thank you.
Just one more thing, and for David's and even others, information. Dr. Jaya, if you can introduce us to your group of schools, like your friend schools who are joining in as well, so that we get a context, which kind of audience we are getting access to. David has been to Mumbai, but then still, if we can understand the scope,
yes.
That we are not just talking to one school, but a leader school for that. Yeah, Dr. Jaya.
Right. So it's a pleasure for me to share that information. We have students from around 15 plus different schools which belong to Indian boards, state boards, as well as international boards. We just spoke to a few students who are doing their A levels. Some are doing their higher schools. So you have around 15 plus schools with various boards affiliated to various boards, including international. Should I name the schools? Because probably you might not know the names of schools from Mumbai. But yes, we have a huge number of participants, and also we would record this entire conversation. This would be made available on the social media platforms. I'll also be sharing it with the principals of various schools, and this would ultimately reach the students that we want to help. So yes, this is going to benefit a number of students, large number of students.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
One of the partner school principals is with us, Ms. Anjana. So welcome and thank you for being here. There are many other principals who are being our partners and supporting this initiative of associating with universities and bringing them closer to the students. Yes, that's it from my end.
Yeah. Thank you,
All the
Dr.
best.
Jaya.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
please.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So, good morning, David, and thank you, and very many thanks. We understand how difficult for some of us, especially. I don't know, maybe you, maybe not, but waking up early and then being presentable and start talking. So, of course, a big thanks for that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Joyner. Thank you once again.
Yeah. So, of course, we would want to understand. So, you are not just representing, University of California, Santa Cruz. You are representing. So I will frame the question that way. That let's say there is a student in Mumbai. Why should a Mumbai student fly first abroad, and then the subset of it fly to US, and then in US why California, in California why University of California, and if University of California why Santa Cruz? And of course, one trivia which I was checking was that University of California Santa Cruz has among the top 5 most beautiful campuses. Yeah. Other than that, if you can enlighten us on the US. See, first abroad. We start from there, and you've been to different other countries as well, and you've spent some time in India as well. So if you can give a good answer to convince us why all this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm really delighted to be here. I wish that I could be here in person and not through Google Meets, but it's a great question that you ask. Just before I answer that question, just want to introduce myself briefly. So I've been working in admissions related positions for many years now. And I actually graduated from University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I have a master's degree in South Asian Studies and lived in Nepal for 3 years. So I'm quite familiar with the subcontinent and with India and Nepal and some of the countries around you. So I'm delighted to be here speaking with you, Himanshu, and great to see you again. And so I think the question that you ask and start with is a great one. Why the US? Why a university like University of California, and why Santa Cruz in particular? I think that one of the things, and again, I'm going to speak generally about people who are going to be getting a bachelor's degree, a BA or a BS degree in the United States. And I think that there's a little bit of difference between getting a bachelor's degree in the United States and getting a master's degree or a PhD in the United States. So I'm going to talk generally about that. I think that one of the things that I've seen over the years that's different about American universities is that students are expected to, in many ways, put together their own approach to getting their education. They are given the ability to work with many of the leading professors and faculties of the world, who are basically discovering all sorts of science or writing leading articles about different disciplines in the university context. And undergraduate students who come to the United States, or undergraduate students in the United States, are basically able to choose a set of classes that they feel will make up the best approach to the kind of education that they would like to have. And they're able to interact with professors, with graduate students, with other people at the university, and with their classmates, I think in a very different way than you find in any other country, including the UK. And that's what I think makes US education so interesting and appealing, is that ability to as a 18-year-old through 22-year-old to be able to really engage with academia at that stage in life. I think from what I understand in other countries, such as Hong Kong, where I used to be, that type of engagement tends to happen a little bit later. So in the US, we're really excited about that. And we have many of the U.S. has about 4,000 higher education institutions. About 2,000 of them are four-year colleges or universities, and among those 2,000, you have say 150 to 250 of them, which are some of the top 300 or 400 universities in the entire world. So we also have a great deal of really strong universities and colleges to attend. So that's the general picture. I think in California, I work with the University of California, Santa Cruz, which is part of a group of 9 universities. We're public universities. We are all research universities. We are considered to be some of the best universities in the United States. I would say that you might be familiar with UCLA, you might be more familiar with UC Berkeley, you might have heard of University of California, Santa Barbara, or University of California, Irvine, University of California, San Diego. We're all devoted to trying to serve the citizens of the state of California and also to introduce our students to the world. And for that reason, international undergraduate students from countries like India or the UAE or other countries in the world are really an important part of the campus life. They provide a different set of experiences and understandings and bring those to their peers. So we're global universities in California. We also have faculties who are engaged at the top level of research for all different sorts of disciplines. We can talk a little bit more later about which disciplines you'll see are the strongest. But I think that the University of California as a whole is it's a great public research system, university system. And University of California, Santa Cruz plays a particular part within that system. We are a university that was founded in 1965 to be more of a liberal arts style campus within the University of California system. And that means that our students have even more access to faculty, even more access to doing research, even more access to the groundbreaking science that's going on in the United States. So beyond the beautiful campus, we're a great public research university system, and Santa Cruz within that system is a very particular type of benefit to students who wish to get a bachelor's or a bachelor's of science or bachelor's of arts degree.
Okay, yeah. So you just mentioned about a few programs, and so I would also like to, last week we were talking to O.P. Jindal University here in India, and they talked about liberal arts as well. So if you can, elaborate a little bit on that, what is liberal arts and what do people do with that? Because you can understand in India, we are still, fascinated by engineering to start with, and then maybe commerce and business. But then we see a lot of interest, especially in cities like Mumbai and Delhi and Pune and Bangalore, some of those cities where we want to go beyond engineering, or even if we want to do engineering programs, we want to do them with a twist. And as a part B of that question, so what are the popular majors? What are the degrees which students go to in University of California in general, and then University of Santa Cruz? Why would somebody go there to get the best bachelor's in what?
Okay, I'll start with the second part of your question before getting to the first part of your question. The University of California, Santa Cruz itself is quite well known for many of the majors that you mentioned. So business, computer science, specifically computer engineering, many of the areas around the biosciences, so molecular and cellular biology or bioinformatics is a quite strong one these days. We also have quite good strength in physics and astrophysics. That's one of the departments that really was one of the leading departments since the founding of the university, and I think that's probably our highest ranked department still. And I like to tell students who are interested in careers in tech, working in places like Mumbai or Bangalore or Hyderabad for new companies that are up and coming, that physics or astrophysics is actually quite a good background for that. And I'll get into that in a moment. We're also quite strong in film and digital media, and that includes digital games. We have one of the most well-known programs in that area. Which is a cross between computer science and film and digital media, basically. And then we also have historically had some very strong majors in things like politics or in literature. Many of our most well-known alumni are actually journalists or writers. So we also have that narrative side. And then, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that Santa Cruz, being on the coast and having a long history of environmental awareness, also has very strong environmental majors across the board. So from anything from marine biology to human biology. And so we also do attract people who are interested in medical careers as well, typically in those areas. So to answer your questions about what is the aspect of a liberal arts education, I talked about a little bit in my first answer to the first question, but I think that, as you said, careers of the next, let's say the next 20 or 30 years, we don't know exactly what they will be at this point. And so we, in the United States, in the way that we approach education in terms of post-secondary education, we really believe that the best way to prepare students for the future is to give them a well-rounded education. So if you are going to be in, let's say, computer science, then you should probably understand something about the interaction between computer science and the biosciences, or computer science and sociology or psychology, because of artificial intelligence. You should have some insight into different types of disciplines, because that actually can prepare you to get opportunities in the future. So you have your specific degree and your diploma in something like computer science, or even in physics, if you want to be in artificial intelligence, or if you want to do something about speech recognition, for example, in the way that that's used in computer science. But at the same time, you'll have to think a little bit about how do you get the right data to put into your artificial intelligence algorithms, and how might you set up things that are in our artificial intelligence to really benefit the human population. So I think it's one of the things that really, again, going back to the question about US higher ed, I think that American universities are quite strong in providing that foundational background and allowing students to take higher level courses in a variety of disciplines. And the strongest students that we see coming out of the university tend to be students that have done, not necessarily majored in two areas, but have a deep background in two or more areas. So they might have a very deep background, like I said, in computer science, but then a very deep background also in psychology, and they come out perfectly prepared to work for leading companies such as, Netflix or Facebook or Google or whatever. And then again, just to talk a little bit about the astrophysics, physics area, one of the things that I recommend highly to people who are very interested in tech or in finance or in business is to get that foundational background in something like physics or astrophysics, with all the equations and the applied math that people do, is really helpful to work in cloud computing, for example, or computer storage, or a lot of different kinds of careers where you can jump right into your first job.
That's amazing. I don't think I could have understood it better. So I think we got a great idea about things from artificial intelligence to astrophysics and everything. I think we're pretty convinced on that. Now, going on to the, the pragmatic aspect of it, how do we get in there? What's the admission process? What do we need to do? Like in the current scenario, we don't know when exams are happening. Some of the exams are cancelled. Of course, I'm not restricting to that. And of course, I got to know, that the SAT is waived for a few years. So not just for this year. So if SAT is available, if SAT is not available, and then of course so many things which are there. And how I understand, is that, I don't know whether we present it together on something like this, but then this is how I talk to the parents and students, that we remember the things with our palm. So I tell the students and parents to raise their arm and count the things on this. So these 5 things which are required. So these 5 things are, the first one are of course your grades. So grades are there, which we need because we are students. So we need the grades. Second is any tests which we do. So SAT could be one, and TOEFL or IELTS, which could be one, or any other tests which we do. And then third, we come to the essays. So I understand University of California has 8 essays. Out of those, we attempt 2, or we attempt 4. Sorry, earlier we used to attempt 2. Now we attempt 4. And then one which I talk about is the letters of recommendation, which University of California doesn't need. And then the last thing is the activities. And I understand when we are, liberal arts driven and very holistic, we believe a lot in the activities. So this is how I talk about the 5 things which in general we need. But then to go to a University of California kind, which a Mumbai student is always excited about. So what are the things which I can make sure if I want to study astrophysics at Santa Cruz, I want to do film studies at Santa Cruz? What are those 5 things or 10 things? Up to you.
So it's funny you mentioned that. One of my friends who's a student, an undergraduate student actually from Mumbai, he is actually double majoring in astrophysics and film. So quite interesting that you mentioned those 2 majors. So I think the best way to understand the process is to think a little bit about, so many of you probably know already that the University of California, we use our own application. So we share one application process with all the 9 campuses. We're the only universities who use that application process. It's different than the Common App, but it does share some similarities. So first thing to know is that we have our own application. That application is due on November 30th. So if you want to come next fall, then you'll need to apply before November 30th. And it actually, what you mentioned, Himanshu, is it does have several of the aspects that you mentioned, except for the letters of recommendation. So the first thing we look for on that application is basically 3 parts. The first part is your grades and the courses that you've taken. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. The second part is your extracurricular activities. And the third part is the essays. Going back to the first part, which is definitely the most important part, it sounds like most of the schools who are attending are CBSE schools or ISE schools that have the 10th grade and the 12th grade exams, or the A levels. So you have the IGCSEs and then the A levels. If you are on the system that has the 10th grade exams and the 12th grade exams, what we are looking for is that 10th grade exam, and we will change that score set of exams that you have into a 4-point scale. So in the US, A's are considered 4s, B's are considered 3s, etc. And so we will take your grades, say if they're 10s or if they're 9s or they're 8s, and we'll turn them into A's. And then we will then give you 1, 2, 3, 4 for each one of your exams, and then calculate your GPA based only on your 10th grade exams. That will then give us a GPA. For international students who want to come to the United States, to California, we would require a 3.4 GPA minimum out of that calculation. We are also looking for students to have taken a variety of courses. We have something called the A through G course selection in California, and you can look up a little bit more detail about that. But basically what that means is that we expect that you've had 2 years of laboratory science, typically biology and physics. You've had 3 to 4 years of math. You've had 3 to 4 years of English. You've had 2 years of history, global history being one of them. And you've had some foreign language and also some arts. In India, when arts are not offered, sometimes people will tell us about their piano or dance or something else that they're doing on the art side, even if it's outside of class. So we expect to have a broad curriculum. We expect to have a GPA of 3.4 and above. And then in India, if you are in a English language school, which most schools are, then we do not require the IELTS or the TOEFL for undergraduate applicants. And I think that's the same for most of the University of California system, although you might want to double check on that, depending on which campus you're applying to. And then the question of the SAT or the ACT. This year, the SAT and ACT are not required. However, you can submit them if you have them. And I would encourage those of you who have already taken them or are planning on taking them in the immediate future, if they're available, to go ahead and submit them. We will not require that they be submitted to be able to read the application, but they can still help your application. And typically, in my experience, I do see some benefit typically for international students to have those scores because they tend to be quite high compared to California students or American students. So that's the first part. The second part is your activities and awards and other things that you've done. And in that section, we give you quite a lot of space to fill out anything that you've done outside of class, or if you're on the cricket team, or if you're the house leader, or if you again, you play piano, you in theater, maybe you intern at at a different company, maybe you work at your parents' company. Whatever the types of things that you've done outside of class, we invite you to tell us a little bit about those things and how much you've done of them over the years. In that area, we're looking for significant displays of leadership. We're looking for ways that you're involved with the community. We're looking for showing that you're engaged with things for a period of time beyond taking a class. And the third part is the essays, and in that area is similar to the second area. Those are more expanded opportunities for telling us in more detail about the things that you're doing, where you're a leader or where you're involved with the community or where you're doing something that's highly creative. And generally, again, you touched on it a little bit, Himanshu, we're holistic or comprehensive review. So we look at your grades, we look at your exams, but then we're saying, okay, what else? Show us that you're a leader. Show us that you're engaged. Show us that you've overcome challenges, and show us those things. And you can have two people with the exact same grades and test scores, but somebody who even might have a little bit lower on those areas, but has outstanding leadership, that has outstanding creativity, outstanding engagement, will get in, and others will not. So that's the difference with holistic admissions.
So, Mr. Dev, if I could say something here. So it's
Yes.
so important
Yes.
that you, hello, yeah. So it's so important that you mentioned that it's all about the comprehensive learning. It's all about holistic learning. It's not just about scores on the report card. And this is what many schools in India still need to understand. It's not just about scoring the maximum in academics, but it's all about a child's development in terms of working towards the community, being a compassionate individual, being a seeker, being a learner, being a person who also has skills outside of the academics, as you mentioned. And thank you for making it so very clear. I wanted to ask Mr. Dev if you would like to take up questions as and when they appear, or you would like to do that towards the end of the program at one go.
Yeah, I think that question which I was seeing by Raj, that talking about biotechnology or biosciences, I think we can take that. So David, there is a question on, yeah, we talked about few majors and the programs which are available. So there's a specific question, if we can throw some light on biotechnology or biosciences, or courses related to that, David?
Himanshu,
So
sorry, I also have a question. Same related to biotechnology, and also, can a student do majors in computer science as well as in astrophysics
Simultaneously?
simultaneously? Like Dave mentioned, Dave, I would like to introduce
Yes.
myself. I am Anjana Sahi, Principal, Podar International School. And so my students also have questions regarding computer science as well as astrophysics. My student could not join JEA because of the internet connectivity. So he
Oh,
sent me
Right.
this question that if I can ask David, that is it possible for him to do astrophysics and majors in computer science?
well,
Thank you.
thank you.
And sorry, Himanshu, to cut
thank,
in between.
No, no,
it's
it's
okay. Thank you,
perfectly fine,
Anjana.
Anjana ji. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, oh, yeah, David.
Uh,
So I
Thank you
think
so much for that question. And I'm a big fan of Podar International School, by the way. And so thank you so much for joining us today. I think that generally double majors are possible if the student is able to handle the amount of coursework. I think that astrophysics and computer science is possible. It might be challenging, but it is possible. It's a question of how to meet the requirements for both majors simultaneously. And there is some course progression, but I do think it's possible. Going to your question about the biosciences,
biotechnology or biosciences.
one thing I would say is that you may have heard about human genome sequencing. So much of the medical development today, including the current crisis that we're in, looks at the genetic sequence of molecular biology, and including its effect on human genome. And so the human genome, going back some 10 years now, maybe, there was a race to be the first to sequence the entire human genome, and Santa Cruz was actually the leader on the public side. There was a public consortium, and then which was mainly universities, and then there was a private company that was trying to basically sequence the human genome and then patent it for their benefit. And Santa Cruz was the leader on the public side. And so we've been involved in that type of work with genetics for quite a long time. And so that I often will talk to students and parents about how the key thing to think about that area is to think about how is computer science changing the way we do biology, changing the way we understand medicine. And that is anything from genetics to bioinformatics, for example. But it's also about how do you use medical records, digital medical records for people. There's just so many different ways in which computer science is changing the way we think about health and also biology. And I think Santa Cruz has been one of the leaders in that area for quite a long time. We actually have a new faculty member joining us who's involved. I don't exactly understand her background, but she's a Nobel Prize winner from Johns Hopkins University. So she'll be joining us this fall. And she's in that same genomics area. So you can read about her, or I can send you, Himanshu, I can send you a little bit more detail about her after this session, and you can share that. But thank you so much for the questions.
Sure, David. Thanks a lot. So, now again, another question we have is a very practical question. What are the courses which we can do to get good jobs?
I think I've already answered this question, and I'll try and answer it again. It's difficult. It's very difficult to answer that question because, I know that most of the people on this call are quite young. But if you go back not too long ago, things like computer science were not very popular. They were popular for a while, and then they were not popular. And now they're very popular. So things will kind of go in waves. So we don't know, again, what I said before, we don't really know if you're in high school now, and let's say you're a year 10 or a year 11 or going into your 12th year, that means that you'll be looking for a job roughly 5 or 6 years from now. or so, what are the jobs of the future? We don't really know right now. We have some ideas. We know that whatever jobs that will be available will require more data analytics, will require a facility with data. So understanding things like how to work with Python, something maybe in 4 or 5 years that will be a standard skill that everybody should know. Different languages, going back 10, 15 years ago, nobody probably thought that Chinese was an important language to learn. Now everybody thinks Chinese is an important language to learn. What's the next, frontier look like? Thinking about, so that's just some examples. I think there's going to be more work in understanding how algorithms work and how what we call artificial intelligence works, because there's sophisticated, helpful ways of doing artificial intelligence, and then there's more blunt, not helpful ways of doing artificial intelligence. And those are becoming more clear, but having understanding of the diversity of the world and the diversity of different backgrounds, the diversity of how to apply technology to human life is going to be something that's going to happen. So what does that mean for the kind of majors you should get? What I always tell students and parents is that I say, pick a major or an area or 2 majors where you're going to gain skills, where you're going to have an opportunity to put your hands on leading packages of software, where you're going to be able to get involved with faculty on doing things like bioinformatics, where you're going to be doing actual work as a college student, as an undergraduate student, that's similar to the type of works that you might find in the future, because that's what's going to give you those basket of skills that will allow you to get your first job. So 5 years ago, probably people didn't think that Python was important, but if you are coming out of college right now and you know Python well, you can get a job. But nobody knew that, again, before. So part of it is using your, and I think this is another advantage to the US system, is that you can actually, at a place like Santa Cruz, UC Santa Cruz, or other universities in the US, you can actually get involved in real research projects with professors and with graduate students to do things like astrophysics or to do things like biotech. And I think that those types of experiences are really the foundational experiences of giving you that set of skills that's going to translate to the first job. So the short answer is that in America, people rarely get a job based on their diploma. They get a job based on their skills, and that's a big difference.
True. Yeah. Thank you, David, for that. So as we move on, so now a question on access. We talk about scholarships, and I talk about scholarships a lot, and I studied on a full scholarship at a university in the US. And so now going on to that question, whether that was asked by Ishi on the chat box, or I would, of course, bring it on. What are the kind of scholarships we can get? And it may be specific to Santa Cruz or, in general as well. I see that, things keep changing a lot. It's not pretty standard, but still, one, that are scholarships available? Second, if they're available, what kind of scholarship we can get? And third, what do we need to do to get that scholarship?
Well, some of the students that I've met from India when I was there last spring actually have received 2 different kinds of scholarships from Santa Cruz. They're both, so generally I would say in the University of California system, international students, if they're Indian citizens, for example, not US citizens who are living in India, but if they're Indian citizens, then they're eligible for what we call merit scholarships. So that's scholarships which are offered on basis of their grades and their work that they've done, not as much on their need, if that makes sense. In the US, some scholarships, if you're an American citizen and you're eligible to apply through the FAFSA and get federally funded aid, then that's a different category of aid. So on the international student side and thinking about merit scholarships, University of California, Santa Cruz, for example, has scholarships called the Dean's Award, which range from $4,000 a year to $10,000 a year. which I've seen many students from India receive. And then there's also another set of scholarships called the Regents Award, which is another merit scholarship, which I've seen students achieve. And those are really the best students. And some of those students also are given access to our honors program. And I would imagine that in some of the other University of California campuses, it's the same, where you have, I know at Berkeley they have, I forget what it's called, but they have another scholarship which is similar to our scholarship, and then they also have the Regents Award. So there's some amounts of merit aid available, but not as much on the need side. So basically, to get it, you have to be a very strong student. But many students from India are very strong students. So that's, if I was to measure India as applicants compared to some other countries, I would say they're much more likely to get these types of scholarships.
Okay. So that's what on scholarship. And, I got the next question. Maybe it was missed or thing. The question is about how do we get admission. So I would just say a few words on that, and then, we can add, of course, we want to answer that question and not miss a parent on that side. So this is a question by Krishna ji. So Krishna, yes. So Krishna, this is the answer, and this is how I answer it, and you can remember it that way. So, and I've seen this a good tip to remember. So we understand it through our hand, the palm. So the 5 things which are there for US admissions, and David talked about 3 because 1 we don't have at University of California, which is letters of recommendation. So what we talk about is 1, of course, your grades. So grades means your marks. So whatever marks you are getting in grade 10, and David really stressed on grade 10 because we are applying in early of grade 12. So we don't have grade 12 marks, and grade 11 is internal, so we don't have the external marks. So grade 10 is the important year where we get to see, that you are really doing challenging work. So generally you can prepare yourself from grade 9, 10, 11, 12, but then we are applying in early of grade 12. Like David was mentioning, we apply in November itself. So November means 30th of November. So 30th of November, 2020, we would be applying to be in the US maybe in August, September 2021. So this is how we need to understand. So for August, September 2021, our application would be submitted almost 1 year in advance. So somewhere in November 2020, the things are submitted. So we can't really rely on grade 12. So we don't even have the half-yearly results of grade 12. What do you think about final results? So if you are planning for US, you have to plan most of the things in grade 11 itself. And as soon as you reach your grade 12 and few months pass by, you're already applying. So the first thing is the marks. Then, of course, the essays are important. And as we mentioned that there are 8 essays for University of California. Out of those, you write 4. So you have a choice that you write 4 essays out of those 8 prompts. And then, of course, I can share those. They don't change every year. David, I hope they're not changing again this year. Yeah, so they don't change very often. And then the third thing is, the letters of recommendation which you take from your school. But University of California system doesn't require the letters of recommendation. Then we talk about the tests, extra tests like SAT, ACT, TOEFL, IELTS. But again, University of California, Santa Cruz waives IELTS or TOEFL if you study in English curriculum. And then, of course, we can check on that. And then SAT is waived for this year. Otherwise, you need SAT or ACT. Then we come to the activities, how we prepare our profile holistic. So what are you doing outside classroom? And the beautiful thing is that you do not have to just win. It is not about that how many medals you have or how many first wins you have. That I came first in something, only then I can include that. Even if you swim on a daily basis, you can talk about it. You're not going for swimming competitions, but you make sure that every day, 5 p.m., you go to the swimming pool for half an hour. that is a regular activity which you can even talk about. If you play piano for your family friends, for your family, every Sundays or every Sunday morning or at the church or at the temple, whatever you're doing, you can talk about all those things. You don't need to send all the heavy certificates to the university, you know. So universities like California complain about that. We get the heaviest packets from Indian students. We don't need that, right? So I hope, you know, I answered that question because I work on those applications on a daily basis. So I took that question. And then, of course, David has already answered that. And very beautifully, he talked about even the activities which even Dr. Jaya appreciated, and the kind of courses which we do together. So I get another question from Anjana ma'am, who is the principal from Podar Nerul CIE program. The question is, does a child need to have chemistry as one of the subjects in A levels for astrophysics? So just to put it together, generally speaking, in the Indian system, whatever we need to do in sciences or whatever we need to do in engineering systems or computer science, PCM go together. You know, physics, chemistry and mathematics have to go together, whether you do anything with chemistry or not. So first, generally, if you can answer that question, generally, how does it go that you have to have PCM? And then this is a specific question for astrophysics. I will take math, I will take physics, but do I have to take chemistry? Over to you, David.
Okay, so this particular question in terms of is chemistry as an A level required for astrophysics, the answer is no. That we expect students to have a minimum. So if you're in the IGCSE program, you have to have at least 5 IGCSEs, and then you need to have at least 3 A levels. And you do not need to have a specific A level for astrophysics at the University of California, Santa Cruz. I would say that one place that Indian students might get caught up a little bit is that there are some schools, I don't think any of them are on this call, where you do see students who are coming in with exams in 10th grade and exams in the 12th grade, which are all like accounting. You know, that there are some programs out there like that. And that would be an example of where we would say that there's no, you know, that's not enough width. There's not enough depth. So we're looking for people who have taken some science. We're looking for some people who have taken some English. We're looking for people who have taken some math in those exams. And when they're all in the same subject, like say, for example, they were all accounting or math, then we'd say, oh, where's the science? Where's the English? Where's the history? You know, so in countries where we do have this 10th and 12th grade exam structure, then the only place that occasionally students will get caught up is that 10th grade breadth area. The other thing that I would recommend for those students who are on this call who are interested in things like computer science, or if you are interested in things like computer science or engineering in some of the campuses like UCLA or Berkeley, is that depending on the campus that you're applying to, they might want to see more quantitative strength in your background. So if you're at Santa Cruz too, if you are applying for computer science, we're going to take an extra look at your math scores. And that's where, you know, the SAT can be helpful. That's where your 10th grade exams in math areas would be helpful, or physics. And in places like Berkeley and UCLA, not to speak for them, but you should check, there are a number of different majors where they take an extra look. So going back, Himanshu, to the admissions process, one thing that people need to understand from India is that when we admit a student to the university, that student is admitted not only to the major which they've indicated, but they are admitted to any major that they would like to go into, except for a few majors which are considered selective majors, or, impacted majors. So at University of California, Santa Cruz, the only major that is not available for people to change into is computer science. That's the only one that you would be admitted directly into computer science. Any other major you can change. So let's say you come into the University of California, Santa Cruz, you tell us that you want to take psychology as your major, and then after 1 year you say, you know what, I changed my mind. Now I want to take computer engineering. You can change your major. That's not a that's much different than the Indian system. And I think in most universities like Wisconsin or Berkeley or many other universities, that's the same in the US, is that we don't typically admit students by major except for a few exceptions. So I think it's something where, again, going to the structure and what we expect of an undergraduate or a student who's getting a bachelor's degree, we expect people to be broad. We expect them to have a broad range of interests, especially in the first and second year. And then when they get to the third and fourth year, they become very major focused. So there are, in some places, if you are, and I know many students from India are interested in computer science, those majors will take an extra strong look at any quantitative scores, whether it's SAT, if you happen to have taken the SAT 2s, or if you have AP, or if you do IB, you're looking at your higher level IB math, or, in going back to the example of the A levels, that they might take a look and see what are your A levels. Are you doing something in math, higher maths or something like that for A level?
Yeah, thank you, David, on that. So now I think, I open it. So one more thing which we get from Podar School is, I'll take that and then give it over to the school team to take it to conclusion. So with English, physics, math, computer science, a student eligible for astrophysics and computer science. So it's it's like So
yes, the answer is yes.
yes, the answer to that is yes, and the answer to whether you need chemistry or not. So the answer to that is that we don't need chemistry. So with physics, math, and computer science together, you are showing that to the university that you have that quantitative and scientific aptitude to do both of the majors. Yeah. So thank you, David, and thank you all of you who participated and asked questions. But I give the formal opportunity to Dr. Jaya back, that
Yes.
how you want to conclude it and take it forward. Dr. Jaya.
Sure. So it has been an invigorating talk with so many pertinent questions coming up. You, Mr. David, for explaining with so much of patience and so much of clarity. What matters is that there was no confusion in what you were saying, and that's really appreciable. And sometimes students get so confused, and at the same time, they are not that confident to again question you back. But thank you, you managed it so well. There was tremendous clarity in what you spoke, and I think a lot of credit goes to Mr. Himanshu Dev as well for ensuring that the right information is brought out of you in the right way. And thank you. You have the entire day ahead of you. Thank you for sparing the early morning time with us. It has been very enriching and very informative. So thanks to Mr. Dev. Thanks to you, Mr. Joyner. It has been a pleasant experience. We look forward to your cooperation, support, and guidance for all the children here at Ramratna International School and in India. Thank you.
I hope that I have a chance to come and visit in person next year
Yes,
in the
we
spring.
would love to have you.
I'm very much
Please
looking
plan a
forward
visit.
to Mumbai has become my favorite city in India, so I would definitely be back.
It is a beautiful city, and we would take you around Mumbai as well, so that you start liking the whole of India, not just one city the most. So looking forward to hosting you physically, not just
Great.
virtually.
Great.
Most welcome. We are
What-
all there with you.
One more thing
Yes?
I'd like to say, and I know that Himanshu would agree with this, is that being a high school student and going into the process of applying to universities, especially the American style of holistic review
Right.
or comprehensive review, can be a little scary, a little bit frightening for students and parents. And I think that they often feel that to put themselves out there and to really tell us who they are and
Right.
tell us all about themselves can be a
Yes.
bit more frightening than just showing us their marks. And
Right.
I think that working with people like Himanshu or yourself to try and to really help students, to encourage them to tell us as much as they can about their interests, the things that they've done, even if they don't feel that they're significant. I would say those students definitely have a better chance of getting in than a student who tries to fit some formula that they feel is what they learned on the internet or whatever. It's much better to be yourself. I often
Right.
will use an example of a student. I remember reading an application where a student was applying to engineering and had organized a poetry website and and was interviewing famous poets and
Wow.
doing a little kind of blog about poetry. And reading about that really convinced me that this student was entrepreneurial, that this student had deep interest, that they took an idea and really made it come alive. And that's that leadership, that kind of energy that we're looking for on our campuses. And you might say, well, that's not engineering, but it really showed that that student was okay to tell us about themselves. And so really, when we read the applications, I always tell students we read from the first word to the last word. And you never know which part of that application is going to really make the difference. There's no magic formula. It's really about having a complete representation of who you are and all the things that you
Right.
are interested in. And again, what Himanshu said about the certificates, instead of piling up certificates and awards, tell us what those meant. Oftentimes we'll see from India students who have won an award for being something, and they don't tell us how many students were considered, how much time went into it, what did you actually have to
Right.
do to enter the competition. And those types of details are really the difference makers, because we can then see this is this student is really engaged. This student is really somebody who's going to take advantage of whatever opportunities they have in their school. And I know your schools have a lot of opportunities, and we're looking for those students who can take an opportunity and run with it. I often say that students from India who come to University of California, Santa Cruz, we're looking for students who in the first year or the second year want to get involved in a research project with the faculty, not waiting, not being
Wow.
passive, but, taking the opportunities. I'm working with students now who are helping us with a project with drones, and this is a sophomore, and they're from India. So, there's just so many opportunities, but those, we're looking for those types of things from their high school record, from their high school time. And I know that, Himanshu will back me up on this, that's not easy for students to tell us, because it feels uncomfortable. But I think that going through the application process, if you are interested in the US style application, can really be a great experience to learn about yourself, to help put those things down in some unified place, whether it be a University of California application or a Common App. It really helps
Right.
put that forward. And congratulations to you and the other principals that are with us today for really supporting students and parents to go through that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Joyner. What I get out of your little speech is that one has to be self-aware. One has to appreciate his or her own qualities and values and traits. One has to be authentic and genuine. And, in India, it has taken a very long time for us or for Indians to appreciate that there is more beyond academics, there is more beyond textbooks, and there's more beyond marks on a report card. And I'm so thankful all those who would be listening to you today and later through the recordings would get a better idea of what holistic approach to education is all about. Thank you for further enlightening our students and educators on this. We look forward to meeting you again soon and hosting you physically in Mumbai.
Definitely.
So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Dev. And thanks to all the attendees today. You are making this initiative of RRIS a great success. We look forward to hosting you again on Saturday.
And good luck,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Same
Thank
to
you,
you.
Jaya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, and
Thank
thank you.
you.
Namaste from
Thank you,
RRIS.
Bye
Himanshu.
bye. Bye bye,
Namaste
everybody.
from
Thank
India,
you,
sir.
David. Thanks a lot.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Jaya.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dev. Thank you, Mr. Amit, for the technical support. Thanks to the staff of RRIS and all the attendees. Bye-bye. Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank you, ma'am.
Good day
Thank
to you,
you.
Mr. John.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye. Good day.